Okay, this is the water meter test. This house has an analog water heater we're going to discover right there. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And so right in here, this is called a cheater wheel or a cheater pedal. Okay, it's a flow indicator. When it's turning, it means water's turning. Why is it turning? Why is it turning? Now, there's a woman in the house right now, but usually if you flush a commode or turn the faucet on, it turns a lot faster. These belong to the municipalities. They belong to the water company. In an emergency, if you line these ears up, okay, that'll turn the water off for you. One way to kind of tell, and I might be scared to do this, but if you look up here, these things break off. This is the lawn sprinkler. Okay, if I turn that off, this will tell us whether there's a leak in the irrigation system. And that doesn't seem to be where the leak is coming from. So I failed that test. Alright. Before I come and button this up, we're going to check to see if it stops. Because she might be doing something with the water, but so far that's not the case. I'm going to turn this back on, and we're going to revisit you here in a minute. It's kind of out of order. I'll move up to the middle of the home. This is the closest exterior bib faucet and this is also the main water shutoff valve to the house. Now this is yours in case of an emergency. Now that valve is supposed to be exposed. It's not supposed to be buried like that. All buried and rusty. If you think you turn that on, if you have an emergency and you come turn that off, you cut off the water to the house, you're probably going to end up going back out to the meter to turn it off. And then you're going to fix whatever problem you have in the house. And then you're going to dig this valve up and replace it too. And then turn the water back on at the valve. Just saying. So that shouldn't look like that. So coming along here, we're looking for between 40 and 80 psi. And 40 is no longer the minimum. So there's that. So we got about 42 psi, 44 psi. That's acceptable. Now we're going to come back and look at that too. You're supposed to let that set for a little bit. So it gives us some time to talk. And you know I hate to talk. This is a clean out, and this is a clean out. It's a double clean out. It's the main clean outs to the house. See how this one goes that way? The other one will go the other way. That way you can take a snake or a rotor-rooter or whatever, but we're missing a clean out cap. Sewer gases. Okay? And now this valve here in the middle, I'm going to be looking for this one a little later. Well, I have found it. So I'm going to jump ahead to the swimming pool. And that is the vacuum breaker for the drains inside your swimming pool. So you're supposed to have a vacuum breaker. I'm looking for that. That would have been a deficiency if it wasn't here, but it's here, so it's not a deficiency. And we're holding our pressure pretty steady. One thing that I'm not seeing, okay, that's the check valve for the lawn sprinkler system. When this home was built in 2020, it wasn't required to have a main valve. We'll go talk about it. Let's go talk about it. Okay. That's how we do things. We're talkers. Gives another chance to look at the valve. Remember the main water shutoff valves? I said the handles were rusty and it should have been excavated. Well, we come over here and we look at our check valve for the lawn sprinkler system. Okay, it should have a main shutoff valve. Is that what you are? What are you? I thought it was an irrigation valve. No, it's just a valve. That's the plumbing where they tied into the main house. This is where you would install a main shutoff valve for your lawn sprinkler system. These valves over here, these are just isolation valves for your check valve. And they're all rusty, and you really can't rebuild them, and when they get rusty like that, it's time for replacement. Yay, everybody wants to hear that. You're supposed to have little rubber booties on there to keep dirt from getting inside of them. You don't. And this should be excavated. It's definitely not the worst one I've ever seen. You can get your hands around it, but it should be lined with gravel so that it doesn't, erosion doesn't come in and fill it up. So when you replace the valve, because you can't, the whole check valve, because you can't replace those valves, when it comes time to replace this thing, it's supposed to be serviced once a year and nobody does it. I get that. But when it comes time, just get all that done. You'll put a main shut-off valve right there, put your valves and your check valves in there, and you'll be good to go. Okay. Now, I cannot find, and I reserve the right to change my mind, but I haven't been able to locate weather sensor for the lawn sprinkler system. Another thing that I didn't see, and I'll reiterate that when we do the electric service panel, is the valves, the stations, the zones are not labeled. I'll leave that up and I get a still image. They're not labeled. So what do we learn? I'm going to check the pressure again, and then we're going to check to see if we got a leak, an undetermined leak. That's bright. Woo. It's still 42. It's still 42. That's still covered up. That's still rusty. We'll turn this valve off. Get in here. This looks new, doesn't it? I left one in Highland Park, that's why. Okay. Back down to the main valve. It's still leaking. We have failed the water meter test.